8:32, I'm calling to order this joint workshop of the City Council of the City of Bandera and the Bandera Economic Development Corporation. We're at 511 Main Street for the City Hall, Wednesday, July the 27th, 2022. All council members are present with the exception of Darcy Hasty. Our city attorney is present. Keely's, well, you can introduce your folks. The city secretary is not here yet, but she will be here shortly. The EDC president, Jared Wilcox, is here. Jared, would you call to order your members?
We have all members present except for Alan, Kay, and Lauren.
And Keely is your admin assistant.
Keely is our administrative assistant who is present.
Okay, item 2 is workshop item.
Back to everybody.
A is discuss the EDC fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. I doubt that y'all have gotten very far in this budget year as far as preparing your budget. I just wanted to go over a few things that I think would help the city along in our infrastructure pursuits. Currently, we have annually the Texas Water Development Board DWSRF loan. That's the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund loan. The principal on that is $85,000 this coming fiscal year. EDC has been paying $42,500 of that, or half of that. I'd really appreciate if you kept doing that. The 2023 will be the first payment that we make on the Flood Infrastructure Fund, also to Texas Water Development Board. That too is a 30-year note with no interest, but it's $99,000 a year. And if y'all could help with half of that, that would be a tremendous help to us as we look forward to our other infrastructure projects that we're working on. Also, we have the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant for the playground. Y'all have provided $25,000 of the $75,000 match. It's $75,000 on the city and $75,000 of Texas Parks and Wildlife. I would really like to have another $25,000 of that. Council, can you think of any other projects or expenditures that you'd like to present to EDC?
I'm talking about the parking lots.
The parking lot? Well, that's in this year's budget. That's not in next year's budget.
Oh, it is in this year's? Okay, well, they don't have any money for this year. They, but,
Well,
It wasn't approved, though.
no, we were gonna talk to them about making that a project for them next year.
the Methodist Church parking lot or their church?
And both of them, the EDC and the Methodist Church.
Well, I think when we have the deeper discussion about the Methodist Church parking lot, they're contemplating going to a pay-to-park parking lot and taking control of it themselves
Okay.
at the end of 1 year, so we would not have to put out that money to, that's just their thinking, so
So,
I think we're ready for
so the
that.
way it was explained to us in the last meeting was that nothing on their side has been decided. They were wanting us to pave it. They did not want to do a pay and park, but if they had to, they would. And we know that the EDC parking lot probably needs it also. In the last meeting you were at, Mayor, that was one of the things that we were gonna talk about in the workshop with the EDC, was that be a project for the both, because they're right across the street from each other and then being done all at one time.
Well, that would certainly be a great project to do.
That's the
I just
reason I
don't
mentioned
know
it.
that
I know the details aren't
there's been
finalized,
anything
but
worked out,
that's,
yeah. I know they're more concerned right now with the deferred maintenance, this $7,000, $4,000 on our side project to be done, just the topping and the striping.
And that is back on the regular council agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
For August the 2nd.
know more then.
Yes.
What was the second item? That was 99,000.
That is the Texas Water Development Board. Fifth, the Flood Infrastructure Fund. That's the drainage project that we're doing all the way through town down to City Park. And a lot of that is going to be redoing, improving Maple Street and the flow, the runoff into the park, trying to save some of that.
Okay.
Dan, one other, yes, sir.
Go ahead, whoever you call first.
Is now, are you ready to present, when you were talking about the economic, executive, the executive director and,
I'm just here as a resource. If y'all
Maybe
have
I can start
questions,
this off.
I'm happy to
Okay.
answer questions.
We've been having great difficulties recruiting administrator for the city. And I'm becoming a believer that we're probably gonna need to up the salary. With all the projects we have going on here in the city, we could also use some assistance there, like 30,000
For the salary.
to assist us in the salary, toward the salary for the administrator.
but it's not just for the benefit of Economic Development Corporation. This person could be the Economic Development Director, the Executive Director, and we've got a huge economic development project coming up that we're just now tapping the tip of the iceberg on. It's $750,000 to $1 million project. And we, especially volunteer participants in these different boards and commissions and even the council, we don't always have the time or the expertise or anything else to be able to pull these things off in an efficient manner. You know, I'm working on the first part of this grant right now with Laura and Patricia Moore, but I haven't seen Patricia yet, but she knows we're working on it. And there's a lot to this.
It's an awful lot to it.
this, you know? And I believe it would be to your advantage to have someone to coordinate all of this stuff. It would not take your place, it would not take the board's place. It would just be the top of the ladder and spread it down. Dan, can you explain it better than
Yeah,
that,
so,
please?
so most cities your size have they contract with the city for their services instead of duplicating services. And not just admin, but also administratively, the executive director, by paying a portion of that salary or paying a portion of the overhead cost that the city incurs.
Yep.
I looked at your bylaws and they talk about using city resources. Y'all cannot use city resources without a contract with the city that pays for those resources. And I remember when those bylaws were adopted, and I pointed that out. It used to be that way here, is my understanding, and for whatever reason, there was a falling out between the city and the EDC, and that went away. But most cities your size and larger, even one of my largest clients, that's how they handle their business. The EDC contracts with the city, they pay a portion of the cost of a salary, and they have full-time employees that way. And the board, y'all have your own jobs and businesses and stuff to tend to, as opposed to trying to help tend to the city's business. When you do that, the city has the fiduciary responsibility under that contract to fulfill the obligations of that contract. So, you know, it's I can give examples of where that's the case. And in Gonzales, for example, they have a contract with the EDC. They also have a contract with the Main Street, with Gonzales Main Street, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Main Street program. It's a national program. It's for preservation of downtown areas. Y'all would probably be a great candidate for that program as well. But through contract, the city provides the services to both of those corporations, and oversees the books, makes sure everything's filed on time, keeps the records in compliance, keeps the board in compliance with TOMA, all the postings, all of those things take place. So it's one of those things that, you know, maybe it'd be worth a try, you know, and hopefully it works out and y'all can continue doing that. But if it doesn't, then it falls back on the city. If y'all don't want to any longer do that, then the city would have to make decisions, because if they commit to that salary, what that means for you is if you pay a percentage, whatever the percentage of that salary you pay, that's the percentage of their time that should be focused and spent on your business. So there's a direct correlation there. Now, if it's 25, 30, whatever that is, towards the administrator's salary, there would most likely need to be some additional percentage for whatever that admin person is that is also assisting with like Keely is now. You know, that, I mean, I don't know how y'all have her contracted, but I don't think you have a contract with the city for that time.
No.
No.
Yeah, so that's how that should happen, because she's a city employee.
When she was hired by the EDC, the instruction was no EDC work
Oh, yeah.
during 8 to 5.
That was
City
made
time.
extremely clear.
Yeah. So that's why there's no,
I'm
well,
just saying, as a corporation, that's not a good idea.
okay.
I mean, my EDCs that I advise would never allow them to do that unless they have their own. You have to have everything set up to be an employer as a corporation. You have responsibilities and duties as an employer that are gonna come back on you as an employer if something happens. And hopefully y'all have all that set up. If you don't, then, you know, you're at risk, or you're just trying to do it as contract employer. When this person's already a full-time employee for a governmental entity, it's just a bad idea. So, instead, that you should be contracting with the governmental entity, and a portion of that person's time should be devoted to your work. So
Didn't we
you're
ask these
covered.
questions when it happened?
We did.
We did.
Thought we did. I don't remember Dan's participation necessarily.
I'm not been asked, I
Yeah.
didn't,
Well,
I had no idea what set it
This
was.
all
So-
came down from David.
Yeah.
It was when David was here.
Okay.
Well, I can't speak to the contract part or the employee status part, but I do know his intent was that Keely's 8 to 5 time was full. You know, she didn't have time in her workday to do EDC.
Yeah, she took this as a part-time job, totally separate from the city.
Moonlighting.
Like, and she was specifically instructed that she was to do no EDC stuff unless she would have done it on a normal basis, like answering the phone for, like, somebody calls about
Yeah, and
EDC.
there's nothing you can do about it at this point, but
Yeah.
my advice to the city would be, handle it different, handle it through a contract to EDC. Don't handle it as a side hustle for your employees, because of the risk to both entities when you do that. So,
We can clean that up, I guess.
Okay, so expenses, we can still come back to the parking lot thing. What do y'all have in mind this year for, do you have any, I know you've got wayfinding going on,
Mhm.
and that's in this budget year, do you think that's gonna carry over to next budget year?
Yes.
Maybe,
Yeah.
when you,
There's been a lot of hurdles with the wayfinding signs and text dot and regulation and
Well, let me throw this out.
that's why, yes.
who all is,
Well, you
so,
know, wayfinding is an eligible hot fund expense. We could partner up and make it a joint project. And maybe find a way that we could actually get some wayfinding done for a change, instead of talking about it and not actually do anything about it.
one of the things I was thinking, cause we're running into all the difficulties with text dot on it, because 16 and 173 go straight through the center of town, and it makes sense to put the signs right there. Would be putting them right off of them on city streets, so that, I mean, still making sure that they're high-vis signs and that they meet requirements for safety reasons, things like that, but putting them, when 16 runs into Main Street, on the other side of that light, putting something that goes across right there, saying, hey, this is this way,
I think they still have a say.
if it's
Has
within their
anyone-
right of way.
talked to TxDOT?
Oh, God.
Who have you
Don't
talked to?
I have had so many conversations.
Who have you talked to mainly?
I've got a whole notebook.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jerry, I just.
No, I'm in contact with them on city
Okay.
stuff.
I've talked to everybody in the county, in the area, in San Antonio. I went over here, meeting with the county commissioners. I went to that meeting, talked to them then, and have had several conversations
It's been a
since.
fail taste.
It has, but I've got the information and the criteria. Keely, I know you've got all that.
Yeah, we're
If
kinda
you
going
could
away
tone-
from that right
right.
now, so let's not even waste time on that one. So we had a very productive meeting yesterday. I think all of the people on the committee, which the EDC hasn't been able to be updated on this because it just happened yesterday. But, we, in addition to the wayfinding signs, we were thinking that, you know, maps for pedestrians, like at Heritage Park, at the CVB, and over at the corner of 11th and Cedar, where the parking lots are, it would benefit. And if we could do something like what we have out front, like a two-sided, it wouldn't take up much footprint. We could have a two-sided, we could have maps there. We've proposed to the chamber, Angela's a part of the committee, she's taking that back at their meeting later, and at their next meeting is in August. But she's gonna talk to the chamber about maybe doing like a supplement, like our map would have numbers on the buildings, and then the chamber would have a part of their membership to be listed on there as, you know, this boutique is in this building, and they would be maintaining that supplement to the map. We'd have QR codes on there to where they could use that and do everything electronically if they did not want paper. It would take them to the CVB website for lodging, for walking tours, for the map online, or other things, and things we could build on. So the 3 maps and the supplement with the chamber is what we're focusing on now, in addition to the blue international parking, like the blue parking and the charging station. And maybe even like city park or some, or horse trailer parking, something very high level and generic to just kind of, that are small, that wouldn't take, that are already out there. We don't have to pay for any of them to be custom. We just get people coming in from the intersection in the directions they need to go. And then the maps would be our kind of baseline, and we would keep them temporary at this point until we get it settled and we realize we're not changing it all that much. Then we would do something permanent, and then maybe we could do like a campaign or something that would have wayfinding signs all up and down Main Street and something like that. But the project itself, we've spun our wheels with TxDOT. They have very specific criteria on what kind of signs we can put up, and the
Who can
cost
do
of those
them?
signs are into the hundreds of thousands to get them done.
Really?
Yes, and to have the whole thing done professionally and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why we dropped it back. Figured that these things, not only are they, I mean, they're useful. They're, they're handy. You know what I mean? And we could probably sell them when we get done with them. We could probably recoup some of the money. We wouldn't be wasting any money, but it would be something to get us ironed out on what actually needs to be done and what becomes permanent, and then we could come up with a permanent way to do a map, maybe etched on a piece of aluminum or something, and make it more,
Attractive.
Yeah, so that's where we are right now, as of last night, and we were talking about how to get the signage, like how to get the parking and all that stuff, and I said, well, the city orders those signs all the time, so we could probably, get a decent cost through through that kind of, we order signs. So anyway, that's an update on the wayfinding. So the big picture wayfinding, I think that's further down the road. I think this would be something we can do as a quick win and have a big impact. So that's where we are.
So it's next fiscal year? Or?
Well, nothing, I don't think we're already in
We
July. I don't
had
think
already
anything's gonna be-
approved money in this
For this
fiscal year, so
fiscal
we're trying to,
Okay.
We're trying
It
to make
could
stuff
happen.
we're
happen.
trying to make
It
stuff
could
happen.
happen.
I mean,
Okay.
even if we buy the display cases with this year, the
Right.
install and what we put in them, maybe next year.
That may have to be, it just depends on how much, Jill, I need to talk to you after this,
About how much those.
how much they are and where you got yours.
Because you know what I'm talking about? The thing right out front that the
The
locked
community
case.
board.
The display case.
Oh, okay.
The way we post the agendas. I know
Say
we
you get
replaced
the
that
high
recently.
school shop
And so
class
we
to
were
make
just
it.
curious to know where you got them and how much they were, so we could figure out how to
Definitely
fetch it.
Probably a pretty simple design.
Is this the last year for JW Land Development's payment?
I know we, on our last meeting, one more?
Yes,
Yeah,
This year and next year?
so we paid this year's, next year's is the last payment,
This budget year will be the last one.
correct.
Okay, and is that under, just the draft budget that we have, is that included in the projects, maybe?
So,
It's not included anyway.
that's 4,700 projects.
On the projects, yeah.
Did the rest of us get a draft budget?
Y'all didn't get one, they didn't get this?
I didn't print out packets, I didn't get a
Well,
chance
would you
to.
get the for them, please? I mean. My goodness.
Any gut responses to the EDC director, piece of the conversation? I'm curious.
My gut level feeling is hell yes. As much time as I've been spending on this wayfinding signs, yes, we desperately could use some help from someone who can stay on this
A
constant.
full-time,
Yeah.
I'm all
Quarter
about
time.
it.
I do think it's a really wonderful idea, and I mean, I will be frank, we have got to get the salary level up to get the kind of person in here that we all need. And I think too that, to have better cohesion between our boards is gonna be really helpful.
Is there an advertised salary for
No,
the position? Okay.
no.
How much are you
I-
thinking we should,
Without the increase.
We can't really
of
go
30.
there
I don't
yet.
know that I
Okay.
can, yeah, I can comment on that, but, yeah. I think Jerry's ballpark idea, though, of about 30,000,
In that neighborhood.
in that neighborhood would probably get us there.
Do we know what percentage that is, so that we can discuss like,
is that a
What's the
fourth or a
percentage?
Yeah,
third?
roughly 25 to 30, 35.
Okay.
20 to 35, somewhere in there, depending on
I'd
the.
say,
That's about right.
it's a good estimate.
About a fifth.
And they themselves will probably be able to assess, that for themselves a lot better than us.
But
Should-
two, we don't know where we're gonna end up.
No, we don't. No,
So,
we don't.
may not be as much as what,
Now, 20 is really.
might like to
No,
see.
it's not 20%, it's more like
This was,
30%,
my estimate was 30, was
35.
25%
yeah.
ballpark.
Yes, Tony.
So what is the EDC budget this year?
so right
Total
now,
total budget, thank you.
because I hadn't seen the projected from this yet, but we broke it into basically percentages.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Keely. I know you
Waiting to
did.
see what the projected budget was
There's one more in
for,
case you need it.
that came out.
Well, our projected revenue is 650,000, so that'd be 325 for you guys, just in sales tax revenue. And I know your stance last year was we're not going to spend any of our reserves, but we need some help, and y'all might have to make it balance, because right now what I'm seeing is $97,000 out of balance, and now that's easy enough to fix. And Jared, if I might, I would also like to see something more transparent.
As far as,
Broken, like, okay, so your budget versus actual, here's your expenditures and your revenue. I would like to see these broken down, like you're budgeting 5,000 for, I don't know who, I'm just gonna say the pro rodeo, and 10,000 for Cowboys on Main, and 5,000 for this one. And then on to projects for the city, and then you've got a park line
so
item. you know.
we do that in our actual FY budget.
Right, but this is not what the council sees. This is what was presented, I'm just saying, now, I see it in your budget versus actual, but in your proposed budget, it's a lump sum, 157,000 for,
So that would be broke down on
in
Like
your
what?
budget versus actual.
well, no. When we give it to the city, that'll be broke down by like JW Land Development, we require
Okay,
this,
well, I
things
didn't
like
see
that.
any of that stuff
Well, they
last year,
haven't-
and
they
that
haven't
that
done
was
it this
why.
year.
Okay,
Right? I mean, are you talking about this projected year, this new budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, they haven't done it this year. I mean, they haven't. they
I
haven't
know,
made-
but I was
so
looking
How
at-
would they do that? So they're given a total percentage, 10% of their revenue to allow for projects. And so they don't know how it's broken down.
I understand, but what I saw last year was just this basic short page with the big,
Was it broken down?
There was
Yeah.
some things that weren't entered as they normally were.
So we are,
With the-
this
with the
year,
code.
we will have like projects broke down based on what we know we have to pay out, like JW Land, we'll
Right,
pull out the money
absolutely.
for that, we'll do that, absolutely. And then we'll have, what's remains under, that we budgeted for projects, saying this, this is what is still left over in projects.
that sounds great.
And then, same thing with Parks and Rec, grants and loans, things like that.
Great.
Anything that's already figured out for FY '23, we'll have that subtitled for what
Now,
we
you-
send to the city for approval.
Your chart of accounts has accounts for almost all of that already, so it'll be easy enough to just transfer in there.
Yep.
Glad. Also, in your current year budget and in this year's budget, don't forget your carryover. Remember your excess revenue, you get to carry over 10% of that, they'll give you a bit more money to spend in promotions.
Yep.
Are there any more new projects that y'all are thinking about that glimmer?
We haven't discussed them recently, but there were like the 5 projects that Simple City brought up that were things that could be done. They gave that list of 5. Wayfinding was one of them. We were gonna hit the wayfinding first and then go down the list for the next one. Things like that, so I don't remember offhand. I've got it all in my binders down here.
Okay.
I don't
But-
remember off the
That's
top of my head either.
Yeah.
Well, remember, if these are projects that will qualify under
Grants.
hot funds, let's ask council, because these are definitely important to the city. And we have, that account, we did finally get it brought forward, and we have an accurate number in there now, and need to use it for something.
I agree,
A
and
benefit.
I really like the idea of contributing to EDC projects where we can through hot funds. This is a big ask. I just added up the 4 things you listed at $142,000
It's a lot.
for the fiscal year. So any place we can contribute back to what they're trying to accomplish will be, I think, helpful.
Yep.
I mean, not to mention this big potential EDC program.
And we aren't quite sure where that's gonna take us yet.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's exciting though.
It's very exciting.
Patricia, you didn't hear this part, but I'm to like part 4 of this application where the narrative begins. And I'm using a 1014 for our fair housing ordinance, or it's a resolution the council did, I'm pulling stuff out of everywhere I can find to give them the documents that they need for this thing, and they're helping. TDA is being so helpful with this. Every little time I get a hiccup, I email them, and oh yeah, just do this, you'll be fine. So we're gonna have our first public hearing on the 4th, prior to our
Council meeting.
city council budget workshop,
Okay.
and get this thing rolling.
So we'll be in, what's our time gonna be? In
5:30.
5:30?
5:30
The
for
public
the
hearing will start.
Public hearing. And workshop right after. Is there anything that we as a council can do to help you guys, not necessarily monetarily, but get these projects going. Do you need help from the council or consent from, I don't like to use the word consent because it sounds like a parent, but is there anything we can do to help y'all move this thing along, move your projects along?
I mean, I think the idea of having a full-time employee that has a dedicated amount of time to us is a great thing. Help with that.
Definitely.
So, other than that.
And I've been asking, I've put Tony to work on, with the wayfinding, contacting the engineer and, in the committees, we've all had our, little homework assignments, but,
Mine was easy, I got to announce it at a workshop this time.
I think taking the slower approach to the wayfinding is probably, a lot better off. You always want to get production before perfection, and if we try to strive for perfection on the signage with TxDOT and the costs associated with it, we probably, spin our wheels and probably waste money and all that. So taking, some steps along the way to get that going early, work it out, get the bugs worked out of it, and then finalize it probably makes a whole lot of sense. So
Thank you.
Some of you weren't here in 95 or 96, after I first came, 96, 97, I guess. And I don't know who produced this. You might remember, Patricia, but there was a historical walking map. And those things were flying off the shelf. I couldn't keep them. I would get a stack of them and they would just disappear. I don't know if anybody ever did this.
Still have
We
it.
still,
Go ahead. We still have them and produce them and hand them out all around town and are in locations. And the hiccup with that has always been people trying to decide, again, what should go on. And we went through the whole phase of two people, at least one of them, which is departed now, then other people have gotten involved. So I think the idea of I think that we settled on 2 or 3 permanent maps that kind of identify where you are and having those available, it was a great idea we came up with last night.
That, and another thing that, I don't know that it would benefit Bandera directly, but what do you think it would? Remember the Hill Country motorcycle
We have those to hand
ramp?
out.
You still have
Like
those
crazy.
too?
We have them at the motorcycle places.
Because those
And
went really well
We also
also.
have at our office the Butler map posted. And for those that don't know, it's a high-end, non-destructible touring map for motorcyclists in this region. We also take out a goodly size ad on it
Indestructible.
and have created the Texas 8 route.
Awesome.
The Historic Commission was actually looking at updating the walking map. They were kind of
Exactly.
took that on, so did they update?
They have not, Mr. Rodriguez was working on that.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen is, I use an example of a person that presented in our courthouse. He wrote a book on the courthouses. And he said, pick which era of history do you want?
Yeah.
The annex to the courthouse is historical, but people would claim it needs to go away because it wasn't originally there. So, after 50 years, it's historical. So which history do you want? Did you want the cabaret like it was originally built? Or did we want the history to look just like it was before it went away? All of those discussions,
Yeah.
Mr. Ball, and those are all legitimate even among historians. So that's where that has always bogged down.
Is there a difference, or do you differentiate, or is there a way to differentiate between historical and sentimental and nostalgic and,
Well, the city did a whole
and
campaign,
rumors.
and they're still out there. And I hope to make you maybe have one. We have a marker from the city that recognizes our building, not as a historic place, but recognized for its significance to the city of Bandera. And I think those were back in the Linda Stein era.
I think so, before I.
So a significance walking map is what you're saying?
I think still found one of those in a drawer someplace.
Yes, please hang on
They
to
weigh
it
10
because-
pounds, they're heavy.
Yeah, and they were bronze, so they were extremely expensive.
Hmm.
And I think most of us in the room that were active at the time can certainly remember the historic overlay challenge we had prior to.
Oh my god.
Please don't bring that up.
Please.
I shan't.
Let's not say it again. It's just all those-
Yeah.
Okay, you
I don't
guys
think
are,
I've seen Meg since that night.
Nope. No, the problem was that y'all didn't have any, and then when you learned what it was, you didn't want any. So, Simple City came in and just called it all different shit, and everybody was happy. So,
It worked, didn't it?
I guess. They confused everybody enough that it got adopted.
Oh.
I think that's
No, I don't think that's what it was.
so a couple of you are new to this budget process this year. Do you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, why we don't do it?
No, I think it's educational for me, and of course, obviously, our last workshop helped clarify, quite a few of those things. One, getting pinned down on a revenue number to start off with, and then, I think we did a good job just going through allocations on percentages on the major, some are capped at 10% anyway, so taking the major and then start looking at things that we're already committed to, and then obviously from the request from the city council, then I think the process is, spot on, so.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the same as you would do in any other corporation, but you've got
Sure.
certain rules you have to play
Sure.
by that
Exactly.
the others don't. The filing dates and all that kind of good stuff.
I have
Yes,
a-
Tony.
So for the events and the things that they typically annually use their promotional budget for, can you give them an idea which ones do qualify for hot tax? So that they have an idea when they're going into, so they know that they can get money from the city, that they can allocate that somewhere else?
I mean,
Like the list of stuff, like the Labor Day Parade and that, like Cowboys on Main and that, all, the list of things that they spend their promotional budget on, can you give them an idea of what qualifies for hot tax and why?
you're not writing on faith that they spend 1,000, we spend,
I'm just saying, tell them which ones qualify for hot tax.
oh, okay.
Anything
Well,
that puts heads in beds, right?
on this list, what we qualify, Riding on Faith, Buckfest, the rodeo for Labor Day and the rodeo for Memorial Day, Cowboys on Main. The Riding on Faith also has a bull riding series, the Hui, we fund that. At one time, we funded Mardi Gras from 11th Street, we funded that one
For advertising dollars.
for advertising dollars, but it's still promoting the city. And some music
Oh,
too.
that's right.
But that's pretty much all that's applied in the last 2 years.
I'm
Have
just
I
telling,
missed something?
let them know what,
Yeah,
because you're the one
that's what I
yeah.
was looking at, their budget.
And why, so that they know when somebody comes to them, that they know that they can allocate that to the city hot funds, which is what y'all
Well,
suggested.
so a lot of these, though, they come in to get promotional funding from us and the city
yeah.
for hot funds.
Most of them are already asking.
Well, and I think
So-
we did a good job last year of syncing up,
Yes,
who gave what, and if they needed 10,000, it was 5 from, from each or whatever, but, if it qualifies for hot funds and it doesn't qualify for EDC or qualifies for both, then which budget do we want it to come out of is what.
Well, why couldn't it come out of both?
most of them come out of both if they're
It can, I'm just
eligible.
going based on what
Okay.
you said.
I think that
Only asking to give them more information on how to make that decision to fulfill the request that you made, that's all I'm
Well,
asking.
those are the ones that we pay out of hot funds. Remember too, the difference, EDC funds can be paid pre-event, and hot funds are on a reimbursement basis and only can be paid post-event. So there's a difference there in how those funds are when those funds are allocated.
I didn't realize that.
Ma'am?
I didn't realize that. I didn't know that about hot funds.
That's why the EDC money is very helpful for the event folks, because they get the money as they're preparing for the event and not getting it reimbursed.
In our
after.
packet, we have the application, and then we have a post-event report that they fill out, the different categories, supplies with their receipts. They may have qualified for $7,000, and this is the case of the Memorial Day Rodeo. They qualified for $7,000 and only turned in $5,800 worth of receipts, so they got $5,800. That's the way we base that.
I wonder, Tony, if you might have been thinking of my comment where I said anything we can use hot funds for to
No,
alleviate.
I'm simply, Suzanne made a comment to Jared and said, remember that we have hot funds, so if there's anything that you see that we can help you with, come to us and do that.
Yes, okay.
I'm only asking to give them more direction on what that means.
You mean strictly for promotional, because before the conversation was about the wayfaring signs.
I'm
and-
talking
okay.
about the comment she made about hot funds.
Well, that
and-
was related to hot funds too, so I'm just
Okay,
trying
I'm
to.
done with this. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say. I don't know how else to explain it.
So excuse my
Alright,
ignorance, but can someone explain hot funds a little bit?
You want to
Just
go
from
for it?
I'm sorry,
Hotel occupancy tax.
the
Funds.
hotel occupancy tax?
Just how, I understand what it is, but about how it's distributed, how the city and what portion is put in there
Okay,
to be used for.
each venue, each hotel, each bed and breakfast, everybody.
Yeah.
They pay, they pay a total of 14% in hotel occupancy tax in Bandera County. 3% goes to us. They write us a check for 3% of their $30,000 occupancy. They write us a check for 3%
It's
of that.
15%.
They write a check to the state. Well, I think
It's 15%. It's 6% to the state, 6% to the county, and 3% to the city.
Yeah.
And if the short-term rental is in the city, then the owner of the short-term rental accumulates that quarterly and pays it to the city on their own, that 3%, and then they pay the county as well. And then the state, if they use VRBO, they have to pay the ones that they collect themselves, and then VRBA pays to
I
the
feel like
state.
the
So
question
there's
is
two
about
payments to the state.
what are the restrictions on spending those funds for the city?
Well, there's a whole list of things and it's basically, it's in chapter 22?
351.
Where is it? Or 501, anyway. You can spend it on
She's right.
351.
anything.
It's in the tax code 351. It has to be
351.
you have to target visitors more than 75 miles outside your city that are going to spend the night. And so that's what marketing is supposed to be for. It's supposed to bring people from greater distance than 75 miles to here for overnight stays. And so events that want to have tax funds are supposed to submit an application showing their historical draw of persons and where those persons came from in order to justify the funding. The funding can be for the arts, it can be for sporting events, it can be for marketing. However, you are capped on how much you can spend in those categories also within the statute. And people have to read down far enough to get to that part, and a lot of cities don't. So part of that statute tells you what is eligible, and then part of that statute sets your caps per category. And so when we talk about wayfinding signage you can do for hot funds. When you talk about marketing for an EDC, you guys are awesome that you're funding these things because most EDCs market the community for actual job creation and bringing jobs here as opposed to, the kind of marketing that y'all are doing. You're a small EDC, so, the categories that you can spend money on are almost unlimited. Under 505-158, it's anything that y'all decide is going to expand newer expanded business enterprises or that it falls under the community headlines. But events aren't getting that funding in other communities from the EDCs. They're getting that solely from hot funds.
So the term you'll hear is heads in beds. Does this event put heads in beds?
Yeah.
Like Mardi Gras draws people from all over the state, and they wind up staying somewhere locally, RV parks or hotels, and generating even more hot tax.
And I would
RV
also-
parks don't generate hot tax.
Well,
Yeah,
but they're staying, they're
right, they
spending
are
money.
staying, right, yeah.
I would also add, what did I wanna add? Oh, that our EDC does help promote events because tourism is our primary industry,
Our
so
main
essentially
economics.
it can be connected to job creation if tourism is sustainable, yeah.
And here's a really interesting thing that you'll see in our city budget. Our sales tax revenue doubles our property tax revenue.
Oh, really?
We have over $1 million in sales tax revenue every year, and about less than 500,000 in property tax revenue. The number you see in our budget is 2/3 of what we actually collect, because they get a half a cent as well. So tourism definitely fuels the city. Now, when we get into this project, I don't know how we're gonna go, but, but hopefully you'll be able to attend on the 4th, and we can get some ideas, because you have some experience with this kind of
Well,
project.
this is for just a public hearing,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
And that's just to be in support of the program. What I'm hoping will come out of it is bluntly, the ability to start seeking compatible, low-impact industry into the county are creating, and when I believe we listened to Aubrey Ann the first time, she talked about training schools, other things of that nature. And I know, I'll pick on Tony, she went away, but she came back. So how do we get the people back? And I do feel that I get very upset with people that say, all of our young people leave. They do leave, but they return after they've seen and been out a while. So creating industries. What Jared is doing, and I'll pick on him, is phenomenal in the sense, the leather workers are hard to come by, particularly cobblers. And things, and saddle makers. That's what would be something very conducive, a hat maker in this town.
Thank you for adding low impact and compatible industry.
I know the drill.
I know you do.
And I respect the drill too.
And I don't think all of y'all have heard this part, but I don't know what Laura told you, but this is the Rural Economic Development Pilot Program. We were hand-chosen for this. TDA came to us and offered us this opportunity. Now, we all kind of panicked because they went away and didn't respond for 10 days. But she was out sick, so we're all good. But, so we're on track, we're doing it but, there's a difference between economic expansion and economic development. And hopefully, we can find some really great project to what, Rebecca?
I just want to say we were handpicked thanks to Pat's fast
Yes,
action because
absolutely.
we heard at a
Yes.
Hill Country Alliance event the day before this application was due, and Pat said, "Are you going to do it or am I going to do it?" I said, "You do it," and she did it, and she did it right, and she got their attention. So
Well,
thank you.
You're welcome. The gist of that is one of the other things that is becoming extremely popular would be people that are working from home. That is not gonna go away. But they also like communal offices. So finding some spaces that would be great to set up 4 mini offices in, where there's just the ability to go in and I'm working today and blah, 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 so Sam's sitting over there. There's that sense of camaraderie. Hotels are being designed in that fashion. It's kind of like a internet office incubator, so to speak. So you could share one super copier.
Anybody that any of y'all could think of that would have any input, any suggestions, this is your public comment time to give suggestions, to come help us get this thing rolling, because I'm in the narrative part,
Oh, I
And,
can make stuff up for you.
oh, you're next, trust me, you are next.
I think marketing ourselves, we saw from Simple City what our average, our median age for Bandera is. I think the community here, marketing ourselves to the military bases.
Right.
That's a good one,
A
Jerry.
great place to live and commute down to base. The entire time I was in the military, I had a commute of at least an hour. Because I didn't wanna live on base and I didn't wanna live right there next to base. I would commute an hour away just so that I lived somewhere that had community and values and where I wanted a family at. I think marketing Bandera as that to the military bases down there, especially when we've already got such a strong veteran population here. Like, that could bring in younger blood, and a lot of the military retire and figure out,
They're moving here. They are moving here. I see them daily. And they're very young, early empty nesters, or still have families.
and those are a lot of younger age that are going to have a high potential for working from home, the telecommuting, all that type of stuff, so.
Well, come on down on the 4th and let's talk about it. Let's get these ideas out there and get them churning. We need to come up with several different projects and then hone in on one. Is that after,
I think that's after.
That's
it
after
would
the
happen.
consultant.
After we get
we've
to
had
the second part,
consultations,
yeah.
Right.
yes. After the professional consultants have been here, and by the way I'm understanding it, they will do exactly what Simple City did. They will analyze what we have. And I've recognized it for a long time. We're fine as long as we have our tourism. If tourism goes away, we're sunk. Yeah, that's why I'm concerned about the water availability and all of the beauty of the hill country.
Suzanne, I think that community meeting, we're just supposed to identify needs.
ma'am?
I think the public hearing, we're just supposed to identify community needs. At least that was my take on what I read.
All we need to do is have some input.
Right.
Yes, Rebecca?
I have a question regarding our interview process and meeting, which is scheduled to start in about 35 minutes. And I hope I don't offend anybody by just bringing this up here in front of everybody, but if we are asking the EDC to contribute financially and to consider this administrator a partial EDC employee, is it appropriate to ask?
A consensus?
No, to ask the director and maybe vice chair, I don't know y'all's titles, or a couple, or anyone to stay, to participate in the interview. And we've had interview panels in the past, and if we're asking, it's just a thought.
Not for the closed session portion.
Okay, the answer is no. Okay, thank you.
But thanks for thinking of us.
Just wear our hat when you get in.
Yes, Jerry.
Do we have any more requests for this from the city on things that need to be funded?
That is really all that, is EDC eligible, I do believe.
Are you thinking that we might get that parking lot repair and painting done this fiscal year? Is that why?
Yes, the parking lot, the immediate Band-Aid is $7,000, half of that is the city, and half of that's the church, so it's $3,500 or $4,000. And then we've not made a determination whether to rebuild the whole parking lot or not at this point. We haven't even met with, as a council, with the church since they weren't
Okay.
at the last workshop.
Okay. Tony, were you satisfied with the extent of that conversation as far as the budget? I don't know.
I don't know at this point.
I don't either. I don't have a clear vision of what exactly is going to be happening
Well,
or
and
what
that's
they're.
why I was just putting it on their radar.
Yeah.
Because we don't know any specifics.
I think
mean,
that's fair.
So I just was gonna say that for me, that the two parking lots, those are our biggest parking lots at the main side of town that is used constantly, and To me, that's very much an EDC project that y'all could get behind and really do some great things, like do the handicap and maybe improve some of the sidewalking around it, or, you know, that kind of stuff, especially on the EDC side, but, so anyway, I just saw that, but we don't have any details as far as what the Methodist Church is gonna do, so.
Was the 7,000 from the number, was that from the church or from the city on
We
the
got-
cost to do it?
We got 3 estimates. The engineer, the public works director, and I met twice over there, and we walked it, and there was an original plan that was going to be much more than 7,000. With the contract being due for renegotiation next year, it expires next year. The meeting that we had with the committee from the church, Jill and Rebecca and myself, it was decided that since nothing's been done in the 20 years we've had the parking lot, that just to coat it and stripe it, repair the potholes, trim the grass, you know, just maintenance, would be sufficient since we're at the end of the lease. And then at that time, when we would negotiate the lease, then that was when we would decide where we're gonna go. Yes,
So
Tony?
to answer your question though, the 7,000 was the full bill to be split with the church.
Oh, was that the question? I beg your pardon.
But it came from the city and not from the church.
What came?
The
The
bid-
bid, it was a bid. There were 3 that were
I'm pretty sure
done.
they don't even, do you know the history of the parking lot? The Methodist Church parking lot,
yeah,
a little bit?
somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
They presented me with an estimate. And I said, after our meeting, I said, go get this guy under the new thoughts, get him to redo this. So he sent it back to me. I sent that to the public works director so we could get estimates that were oranges and oranges, not oranges and apples. And we have 3 estimates.
Yeah, that's what I was, it came from the city, so that we know the number's good.
Yes.
That was my question.
I thought the church had.
The church presented me with the first one. But then that one, you know, yes, Tony?
So I think the only concern I have with what you just said was about the fix things until we get to the end of the year, and then look at it again. My opinion that would be a waste of money, that we could use it as a bargaining chip to get that 20-year lease again, and to fix it early, and, I mean, do it right the first time, and extend the lease, go ahead and sign the lease for another 20 years after it expires, but just do it right the first time instead of wasting the money to patch it again. I'm just saying that I don't think wasting money on it is
Well,
the
I
right
can't
way to
speak
go.
for the church or their position, but an annual meeting was to take place to discuss the parking lot with the city every single year.
For sure, and we know that didn't happen.
And
Y'all
it's
know that.
We already know that. We already
Yeah.
know that neither side did what they were supposed to do according to the lease. But
Right.
what I'm saying is that Don Giles very much indicated, without saying it so much, that they're just fine not renewing the lease. And I'm telling you right now, that would be very bad for us. So, if we fix it right and the way they want it this year, the way they want it, then we might be able to get that lease for 20 more years after the expiration. But if that's not something that we want, then, you know, why spend the money just to get us to the end of the lease? I mean, we need this longer term because we don't have a parking
This is what
solution.
they wanted. This is what they wanted. They wanted us to seal coat it and stripe it from the very beginning.
We have this on our agenda for
Yeah, it's for next week.
Let's
Okay.
And
put
we
it
can always
there.
go back to EDC if council decides to go that way.
Or find a
Okay.
grant opportunity or other potential.
Okay.
Okay?
And if you do go back to the EDC should seriously look at the pay to park concept.
Yes.
Because the funds from that would cover the maintenance of that going forward, even if it's just your parking lot. I mean, people, that's so common now because there's so many pay apps, and you just scan that, put in your information, pay with your phone. Tourists don't even think about that.
I do. If I go to a small town and they make me pay to park, I'll drive on to the next town.
Yep,
Yeah.
same here.
I agree with
There's
that.
30 minutes, 15 minutes and I can get free parking. I'm not stopping.
Yep.
That's petty.
Nobody's gonna drive through Bandera.
That's
They're not
petty.
gonna drive all the way to Bandera and drive on to where?
Well, that's
Yeah,
just it. I mean,
exactly.
people drive through here on their little Sunday drives, and if they have a reason to stop,
There's also
or, I
plenty
mean,
of street parking too.
it's very rarely available.
I don't know.
It'd be
And
available
especially
to
if we
Yeah,
start,
can we
if we
finish
start
this
charging
meeting?
for the
Yeah.
parking lot, then I can guarantee that street parking will definitely not be available anymore.
Okay, we good?
We're good.
Can
I make a motion?
Everybody can make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Motion, everybody seconds. Any discussion?
Take your pick.
All in favor?
Everybody's
All in
here.
favor, none opposed. 6:32, meeting is adjourned.